2020. Happy New Year to them dogs. Huh? Happy New Year? Yeah. Oh. Jealous. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Speedy's Garage YouTube channel. Happy New Year. It is New Year's Day 2020, and in Speedy's Garage tradition, I always like to go in on New Year's Day and do a few things that I really enjoy doing. So Miss Speedy and I went over and hit the gym just to start the year off right. And then I like to get out in the hot rod a little bit and just enjoy some of that. And that's just to really get the year started in a way that I hope will positively influence the rest of the year. I always try to do something on New Year's Day that's a lot of fun and things that I just enjoy doing. And speaking of that, I like getting content ideas from you guys. And a good friend of mine and one of my subscribers, Andrew, and you know who you are, Andrew, thanks for following along. He came up with a recommendation a while back. He said, hey man, come up toward the ends of the year, why don't you go in and kind of talk about how you got from where you started in 2019 to where you ended up. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that now. I'm gonna tell you the 5 or so things that we plan to do in 2019 at the beginning of the year when we did this video a year ago today. And in 2018, the theme was all about finding out how much I could max out the car without adding any power, or not any real power. We did what I call a drag pack, which is a tire wheel setup, skinnies in the front. I was running a Hoosier Slick at the time in the back, and we did a drive shaft, and that was really about it. And we had Mike from OST Dyno put a tune on the car, and we ended up running a 1037 at 135 miles an hour. And that's not bad. I mean, really, you're way down in the tens on a car with a tune in it. Once I had kind of started averaging that time every time I went to the track, I was running between 10.3 and 10.4. I knew I was getting about the most I could get really out of the setup for the track that I go to. Now I could have maybe gotten to some crazy good prep track or some crazy good low DA, you know, like Atco or somewhere like that, and done a little bit better. But when I start to level out and I see that the car is kind of running the same times, I know I'm getting the most out of it for the way it's set up. So I decided I was going to add some more power. And so we picked up the Hellraiser 272 pulley. That was the first kind of major change that we made this year. Installed that. Mike wanted me to test it out and just see if I really needed injectors. He said I probably would, but we always like to find out for sure. Went out and did some just light throttle input pulls, checking injector duty cycle and injector pulse width in our data logs, and we found out, yes, we definitely were going to need larger injectors. Luckily, I had picked up a set of used ID 1000 injectors online, got them for a little bit less than half of what they would have cost brand new, and people changed things a lot. They didn't have very many miles on them. Dropped them in the car. That solved our fueling, and went out and started trying to dial in that tune. Got it dialed in, went to the track, and on 93 octane we were running 10.0s at around 131 miles an hour. Now the mile per hour should have been higher, and we were having an issue when we were making the runs that day. And in the end, we actually had an engine failure, and that video has been polarizing on the channel, and I'll link to it to the top. It probably gets 4,000 or 5,000 views a day, and I think the last time I checked it, it was like almost 130,000 views. So very polarizing. I actually went in and took the engine apart and showed what failed on it. I showed what we went with as the replacement motor. And so people came in, and you have, you know, kind of the, I don't know why people do this, but they want to come in and say, Dodge, it's a Dodge, what do you expect, and all of that. And the only thing I can figure is when I go to the drag strip, there's very few street cars, even race cars really, that keep up with this Hellcat. And I think people are upset by that. There's really not anything else from the other manufacturers that, with the minimal mods that you do to the car, pulleys, a tune, and some injectors, that will run as fast as these cars run. So people are upset about that. So I kind of take those comments with a grain of salt. Some of them I let go through and be on the video. Some of them I delete because they get vulgar or a lot of language in them and stuff like that. And I try to keep the channel family friendly. But in the end, it was either RPM or a defective rod or something. I'm not exactly 100% sure what happened, but something caused cylinder 7 to fail. If you haven't checked that out, go back. I actually took the engine apart and showed everything. The tops of the pistons look great. I did have a couple of spark plugs that looked burned, but what was happening is the car was pulling all the timing out. And so when you're wide open throttle making 17 pounds of boost on 0 degrees of timing, and that's what I was getting in the data log, 0, it generates a tremendous amount of heat. And I had made 3 passes with that happening, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on with it before the engine failed. On the fourth pass it broke. And so I think that's what actually hurt the spark plugs, was all that timing being pulled out. Lesson learned. I'm not an expert at breaking engines, thank goodness. So I learned a lot from that. And at the same time, after that, I decided I was really going to dig into the tuning on the car and start really trying to understand how they're tuned and what they're doing. And Mike from OST was super, super gracious to teach me a ton about tuning these vehicles. So for 2019, our goals, and I've always had this goal with the car, was to run 10.0 in any weather. And so it would be a very consistent car when I go and compete. Most of the street car class events, they require a DOT tire. They're usually a 10.0 index so that you can remain in that area where you don't have to have a roll cage. If you go below 10.0, technically, depending on how you interpret the rules, you're supposed to have a roll cage in the car. I don't ever intend to do that. So a 10.0 was my goal, and I really wanted to be able to crack off like a 990 something in good weather if I needed to, or maybe turn the tune up a little bit with some good fuel. But the goal has always been 10.0, and I ran a 10.03, a 10.04, and a 10.05 before the engine broke. So I met my goal. Unfortunately, we just had a little bit of a setback. So we got that taken care of. What we did is we replaced that engine with a Demon or Redeye engine. They're the same part number. It's upgraded, it's torque plate honed. A lot of people left comments on the broken motor video about the fact that the Hellcat motors are not torque plate honed or deck plate honed. I thought that they were. And what that means is there's a plate, like a thick metal plate that goes on the top of the cylinders. When it's honed, and it kind of keeps the block square. They torque that down the same as like if a head were actually torqued down to the top of the motor. I don't know if that's actually correct, that the Hellcat engine isn't torque plate honed. If you know that for a fact, leave me a comment below with maybe a link showing it so that I can go and get educated on that. I do know for a fact that the Demon and the Redeye engine are torque plate honed. So that issue is out the window with the new motor. But we dropped the Redeye engine in. It had a few other upgrades, as you know. I won't go into all of those. I'll go back and link to the top on the Redeye engine video if you're curious about that. But it was almost a no-brainer for me rather than going back with another Hellcat motor. Andy from East Coast Moparts, super, super good dude. EastCoastMoparts.com. You know, that's one of the places I get all my parts from. He hooked me up with the engine, so I got that from him. He shipped it, and I had it in like a couple days. Dropped it in the car. We had a master technician from Chrysler work with us on that. Not a scratch. Factory, everything plugged right up. Got the tune in the car. It's got a bigger cam in it than the factory Hellcat motor had. So several little changes like that. Got back out to the track, and we ran 10.0s. I think I ran a 10.03, a 10.05, and a 10.07. On the 93 octane tune, just like I drive it every day. And then we ran a 983 at 141 miles an hour on just a little bitty baby race tune. So pretty good. Thank you. Wow. Wow. Now we're talking. I'm a little bit surprised, if I'm honest. Uh, 983 at almost 141 miles an hour on a baby race tune. 60 foot was 1.499. Wow. That's pretty dang good. Good job, Go Man Go. Woo! Those were the goals that were met for 2019. Moving on to 2020, I'm thinking about that fuel system. I mentioned it in the last video and I asked you guys for your opinions. It was about a 50-50, cradle lockout or an upgraded fuel system. The new dual pump drop-in system is literally drop-in now. You don't have to cut any wires or anything like that, which was important to me. I didn't want to cut anything, so I'm probably going to do that next, just because the Redeye engine and the Demon and even the Trackhawk have a dual pump fuel system from the factory. I did notice in some of my data logs the fuel pressure does start to drop off a little bit in the higher RPMs, so I'm going to go back and take care of that. That's probably going to be the next thing we do, so stay tuned. You'll see us installing that here pretty soon, more than likely. Other things you're going to be able to see on this channel, we're going to try to do a lot more racing in 2020. 2018 we did a ton and it was a great year. 2019 my crew chief Greg was having some things he had to deal with his family, so it was limiting us being able to go to the track. I like for him to go with me. It's much more fun when you have someone going with you, plus another set of eyes, keeping an eye on the car. I can just focus on driving and it kind of takes the hectic level down a notch. And so I'm hoping in 2020 he and I will be able to get the car back to several events, looking to go to some of the MSHS events. There's one in Clay City, Kentucky that we're looking at, one in Louisiana that we're looking at, be able to go and maybe see our friends Chuck and Lisa who help me with Challenger Fest every year. So I'm looking at those. A few more racing events. If the NMCA does another one close by, we might get into some of that. I'm really going to start focusing on the street car class events where you have to have a DOT tire. There was a heavy street car class last year that I wanted to get into and couldn't. So we're going to look at some of that too. So that's some of the things I'm planning for the car itself. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to dial in that race tune. We just barely scratched the surface and ran a 983. So we're going to dial that in and see how much better we can get it to go when it's really running optimally, I'll call it. I'm not going to lean on it super hard, because if it's a 9-second car, it runs a 983 or a 9.1, still a 9-second car, so I'm very happy with that. But I do want to know I'm getting the most out of it. And we're also going to continue the shop build series. We're going to be in winter time for the next couple of months. The tracks are all closed. I've got a couple ideas for the car, but kind of winding that down when we get the fuel system and stuff in the car, get it set up like we want it. I'll do a little bit more, or quite a bit more probably, videos on how to data log. I've had a lot of requests for that, and I do appreciate you guys. You know, coming out with content every week can get a bit tricky, to be honest. I mean, there's only so much you can talk about each week, so I really like when you guys tell me, hey, we would love to see this, or we would love to see that. If it's something I'm able to do, and so far I'm 5 for 5. I think the people that have asked me to go and make some content for them, I've done it all. But we will be doing more on the tuning, because that's been a very popular series and popular content on the channel. So I'll do some more on that, get more into how you data log. I'll get into some of the transmission items and how I figured that out and started working on that. Mike was teaching me a whole bunch about that the past month or so. So it took me about 30 days to kind of dig into it, but now we've got the car set up where it runs great. Really happy with the way it's running, and I'll go into some of that. And we'll get back into the shop series. Like I said, I've still got to go over lighting, the attic space and storage, some of the cabinets and things like that. And then we're probably going to go into some of the tools that I really like to use. I get asked all the time, hey, would you buy this or would you buy that? Well, I'll just show you what I actually bought, why I like it, what I don't like about it maybe. Those are the types of things that will be coming up on the channel in the next couple of months. So with that, I'll wish you a happy new year. I hope 2020 is a great year for you guys. I really appreciate all of you that have helped the channel grow. Each year I have a goal to try to grow the channel about 50%. In 2018, I think it was 30%. In 2019, if I did the math right, it was about 45%, so very close. If we can maintain that growth. And what's interesting is when I look at the analytics on the back end of YouTube, I think it's like 89% of the people that watch the videos on this channel aren't actually subscribers. I don't know if that's a demographic thing or what, but something's up there. So I appreciate you guys coming and watching the videos, but it helps me and helps the channel if you subscribe, if you're here every week. So I appreciate you guys that do that. Hope you have a great new year. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedies_garage, as well as our website, www.speediesgarage.net. And hopefully I will see you out there.